about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just a scout? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
That was great sounds. Watts with Outside on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Preston, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, Mr. EZ Blues. EZ Blues, you're always better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us on the broadcast today?
Let us go on a journey. Let us go on a magical journey. Someone that can take two different things and combine them so they become one. Almost like alchemy. It is fantastic when you have that type of power. And when you can take that power and really push it through the artistic envelope and really change how things are seen and how they are used and how they are reused. That is one of the most beautiful things out there. So I want you to put your hands together, not if you're driving. If you're driving, please keep your hands at 10 and 2 because we don't need any accidents. But mentally, I want you to put your hands together for the fantastic, the stupendous, the phantasmagorical Suzanne Clinard is in the building. Welcome, Benvenuto.
Hi, so happy to be here with both of you. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Of course.
Which comes to my first question. Susan, what first drew you to sculpture as your primary medium of expression?
The very honest answer, it was kind of a chance encounter. Grew up as an artist when I was a kid, always making stuff, mud pies, through paper dolls, through whatever. And then I took a course in college just because it kind of fit in my schedule. And it was an immediate, like, I get this and I love it. And it hit my gut and my heart. And so it was kind of serendipitous, but I appreciate the early introduction. I was 19 when I first started sculpting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Which college?
I went to the University of Michigan.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Use reclaimed wood, found objects in clay. What stories do those materials tell on their own, even before you shape them?
Right. So, I mean, one New Haven rooted story can probably help explain that best of all.
Absolutely.
Which is a commission I did for the Winchester building maybe 15 years ago. And I was asked to, I had done a memorial for the Sandy Hook shooting a few years before that. And someone said, hey, would you come in and see what's laying around the Winchester building and see if you can make something that, that talks about, honoring this space and the people that work there. And I didn't really have an interest of like grabbing old gun parts or anything like that. But when I went in there and saw these gorgeous, massive structural beams that were made from the old yellow southern pine that no longer grows anymore, and they were these massive, massive beams. I said, "Oh, I'll take those," and had them lugged over to my studio, and I started carving faces and basically honoring the decades of skilled crafts people that worked at Winchester, and just the smell and knowing that same beam was in presence of all of these amazing people that worked at Winchester for decades was a pretty terrific honor, actually. So. There's other things I find, like people just give me old tools, old objects that were either farm tools or machine part molds that were oftentimes find in the New Haven area and in New York. And they were they're just so beautiful. So molds are like pressed into sand and then metal's poured in there, and then you can make copies of anything from radiators to different machine parts from various uses. But they're so beautiful, and so many hands have touched these objects, and they've already had a life and a function. And to fill our waste, to fill dumpsters of these objects that are made out of wood primarily, or old rusted metal tools that have been handled and over the decades, they've already lived once, and so kind of reintroducing them with another sensibility in my work, they get to live again and continue their story, so to speak.
You just read my mind.
Yeah, no, I literally, I was like, that
I
was
was
my
about to
next
go there
question.
too. You just read my
And that
mind.
was my
Like,
question after that one.
I'm
I was
like,
like, oh, wow,
yo,
this is great.
this is crazy. Do you see yourself more as a storyteller or an observer when you sculpt?
Oh, that's a great question. Shoot. I'm thinking it's hand in hand. That's like that's I don't know. That might be a 50-50 thing. But
Okay.
I moved around a lot when I was a kid. I come from a family of 6 kids and we moved every 2 years. And I remember because of moving so much, I had to learn to be a great observer of those around me because I wanted to get in the group and play with kids and not feel like the odd one out. And over time, and then North Carolina, Canada, Michigan, Ohio, these places were very different. And so by observing people and their behavior and mannerisms and gestures, and I also then started absorbing, emotional responses, how we all connect in very fundamental, beautiful ways.
Right.
Our humanity, like even as a child, I was like, oh, I know what that looks like. And so, man, there's just too many great stories out there not to kind of shine light on, basically,
No,
So
no, no. This is all great information. But just break it down to me. The answer could be as long as you want. But what
okay.
is the process like from a concept to a final sculpture?
Sometimes it's just a stirring, a little inkling of a feeling that you're like, God, that feels like something I want to talk about. Sometimes I'm driving into work and I hear something on the news and I was like, dang, I need to respond to that in a visual way.
Right.
So the beginning of the process will vary somewhat. Sometimes it's very like kind of murky, quiet sensibility, and other times it's like, oh no, 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 no. Let me talk about this. And then I get into the studio, and then I have to choose like how am I going to approach this subject matter. So if it's something, for example, that's like punching my gut, I see communities being hurt in some way,
Mhm.
communities that I love, like how would I kind of break it down into a sense of something that would connect us and allow the viewer to feel what I'm feeling, but like let them come up with their own reaction and their own view on the thing. So I'd come in the studio and I'm like, do I grab clay? Do I just take my chainsaw and start carving wood? Do I just dump a whole bucket of objects on the floor? So all these things is how I do it. And I start grabbing objects and placing them together. And then adding clay elements to them. So it really is all over the place, which makes my job. I mean, I've been doing this 32 years, and it makes it forever exciting. And I feel, I mean, it sounds cliche, but I truly like. There are times I'm just blown away that I can do this. This is my job, and I feel inspired on a daily basis. And I try not to get too, how should you put it, like.
Emotional?
Well, well, that comes out for sure. But I also try not to stick with the same thing for too long because then it gets so
Formulaic.
rote. Exactly. And then you're like, oh shoot,
Mhm.
how real and sincere and truthful is the stuff I'm making right now? Or am I just like regurgitating
Right.
something I knew before? So keeping it fresh, keeping it honest, keeping it real. Yeah.
You didn't take that traditional academic path. How has your unconventional journey shaped your artistic voice?
It's been huge. And by unconventional, it means that I didn't go to art school.
Mm.
Mhm.
And it means I was a social worker in the foster care system in Chicago. It means I was a Chicago public school art educator for a minute. It means I had a lot of other, side gigs that allowed me to find this like thread of how I'm going to pursue this vocation. And I realized all of this quote unquote unconventional um, path that kind of laid itself gently out in front, and sometimes not so gently, was my educator, was my way of understanding who I am, what I want to talk about, communities I wanted to be a part of. So it's funny. Sometimes I'll get like graduate students that'll come into my studio and they're like, okay, so I got this, basically, I got this degree. Now what do I do? And I was like, honey, this is not a job where you have checkpoints or like
Yeah.
checklists. It is as like random. And matter of fact, I gave a commencement speech for a college several years ago, an school, and the audience looking at me, they were, the parents of the recently graduated, young people, and off to the side there were the graduate. And I'm not sure how much they appreciated my honesty, where I basically said just that, like, get ready. If you want to do this, you might have this windy path
Right.
that, if you're working at the cafe for a couple of years and you come home at night and you're making art, well, that's part of, that's part of it. That's part of your stories, the people you meet, your understanding of, what it means to work in America for minimum wage. Like all those things are part of like how you are going to probably get fed into your artwork. But when you go to college and your parents spends X amount of money on your education, it's not necessarily like probably what they want to hear, because I get it, like,
Yeah.
to some extent. Matter of fact, when I finally left social work, I remember calling my parents and saying, I can't do this anymore. My heart is amazing angels I met, amazing, beautiful humans, and also deeply sad stories. But I was like, wait, how am I going to love people the way I love people and share stories the way I truly want to share stories if I'm completely burnt out all the time? So
Yep.
I called my parents and I was like, well, I'm going to be an artist. And they said, well, how are you going to pay for your health insurance? And I said, I'll figure it out.
Yep.
But I'm doing the deep dive. Yeah.
Now you talk about the stories and everything. I am a big fan of finding out what is so far your favorite story that you've been able to tell.
I think my favorite story, if there's like a thread over 30 years, is the story of resilience, human resilience, and people who have been able to lift themselves from places of despair and places where they didn't know what tomorrow was going to be like there for them. And yeah, I mean, humans we're so fragile, but we're so absolutely terribly inspiring and strong at the same time. And I find that like ridiculously inspiring. So even if my pieces are really contemplative and like inward, the story is of like, taking time to care for yourself in whatever form that is, to fighting the fight, fighting what matters to you. Those are probably my favorite stories to tell.
Were there any pivotal moments that transformed, if I could barely speak, how or why you created art?
There have been several. I think one story that just about knocked me on the floor was, I'm going to go back to the Sandy Hook story, because my older son was the same age of the children that were killed that day, and everyone was shaken, and just like we're continuing to be shaken with the gun violence in this country. But it had a anyway, I started creating, just and able to breathe, a piece that showed the 20 children in this kind of like transparent boat, just like that there, and it hangs, and it's just like they were on essentially a journey. It was supposed to be peaceful and evoke a quiet because of the violence. It was just horrifying, and so I was asked to show at Newtown like a month later. I was shocked, and then I got a phone call out of the blue, and this man said, he didn't introduce who he was, and he just said, "Look, my wife and I saw your boat that you made to honor the children, and we just want to thank you, and we want to tell you it gave us something peaceful to hold on to." And it was like a little chunk of, I can't recall exactly what it was, but then he said, we lost our son that day. His name, I won't say it on the air, and we know exactly which one he is on that boat.
Mhm.
And I just remember, like, it was like one of those moments, like my knees were shaking, because I've realized that here's this like little thing I made in my studio, and here is a voice of a parent who just lost his child to this in this horrible way. And art has a power to it. It can potentially have a tremendous power, um, healing power, but also speak to people in ways that doesn't require. I'm not an articulate person, so I'm so grateful I have a material that might present things in ways that will let people feel their own feelings, and they go home with it and they're like, whoa, what am I going to do with this? Like, does it inspire me? Does it make me mad? Does it make me want to do something? So yeah, that's one. It made me, it reminded me, or it told me, like, hey lady, you're kind of doing what you put on this earth to do. Just keep doing it,
That's
even
awesome.
if you don't make any
Mm.
money doing it.
Yeah, word. Money is, that pure happiness, and that true growth.
Absolutely.
That is one of the most important things. You had probably one of the most valuable moments of your life just by having that phone call and being able to have that
Yeah,
connection. That's something that no one can ever take from you.
yeah.
I absolutely love that for you, and I just want to give you a couple snaps for that.
Thank
And
you.
really, really, that was fantastic.
Thanks. Thank you.
How did your residency at the Eli Whitney Museum shape your work or your relationship to the community?
Um, I would say that it more shaped my work because it gave me a quiet space to. I mean, I've had studios for years before that in Chicago, and even before that in West Haven. Uh, but it was such a beautiful, serene spot where like
Hmm.
birds are flying over. Like, it was just a very special place. A lot of art studios are industrial buildings and such. But the former director was Bill Brown, and he would just like say, "Hey Susan, go in the barn, go check out some of the old beautiful tools or some of the objects that are in the barn, and whatever you see, it's yours." And I was like, "What?" It's like Christmas morning every morning. So sometimes I would just start and dragging things into the shop, and like my stores got bigger in scale because I had access to like greater
Sure.
things. They also offered, like, hey, if you have an idea and we have a CNC machine or whatever, like, if we can help you out in any way, we're here for you. And to know any artist or any creative kid knows what that feels like, to have someone who believes in you, number one, someone
Right.
that's kind of got your back, like a patron without money, but a patron who's got you in support. That's beautiful. So uh, yeah. So I think it shaped me more in like the scale and how I
Right.
started to tell stories. Yeah.
That's awesome.
You taught at major institutions like the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. What have your students taught you in return?
Mm.
Mm.
I tell you what. So I've taught itty bitties, like preschoolers, all the way up to seniors, senior citizens. My favorite teachers are my teenager students, um, because I think my students and teen students are, they haven't, the ego part of them as an adult coming in like, ooh, I got to show that I'm X, Y, and Z, and not lose face coming into this sculpture class where I'm a beginner, which is I oftentimes would see like a little ego thing going on. But teenagers, I was a part of a jobs arts training program in Chicago for about 8 years. And so I'd go
Wow.
into Chicago public schools and run after school programs. And I mean, I would have whole football teams in there carving stone. On the
That's
south
awesome.
side, I would go on the west side and we'd do like 25-foot monumental puppets. And then, or like we would do an honor, like do portraiture honoring like grandparents or community people in Chicago that meant something to the kids. And every single time I would leave a course teaching young people and just feel like literally it was a vibration inside of me, like alive. The questions were genuine. The I don't know, there's less of an ego and involved when you're teaching young people. They're just like they're open to suck it, to take it in, and I love that. And they teach you, oh my gosh, it just feels kind of endless. Humility, humor, uh perseverance, yeah, all of that good stuff, all of it.
Your work explores the themes of identity, displacement, and connection. What compels you to return to those ideas?
I think those are so much of connected to all of who we are. I mean, to every kind of group, so to speak.
Oh, speaking of connection, I apologize. WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Harry, don't sue me. Go ahead, Susan.
um, I mean, in Chicago, I lived in a predominantly Mexican neighborhood named Pilsen. It's on the south side. It's 18th in Chicago, Halsted, South Halsted, and right after college, that's where I lived for the next 15 years. And it's where I was a social worker. It was where I was a public school, like after school educator, and where I became an artist. And living in a community like that, and seeing, groups of like immigrant families coming from such difficult circumstances and making their home in this new place. Men, just they were my dearest friends. They ran the shops that I would buy my groceries. They ran the cafes that I would enjoy drinking coffee, like the resilience and the beauty of identity and transformation, and was ever present in that community, for example. And then moving to New Haven, I volunteered at Iris for probably 12 years, and I saw again the same sense of what that looks like with refugees that resettled in New Haven, all from all over the world, like Syria, Democratic Republic of Congo, and I was kind of like an artist liaison. Like if you were an artist in your home country and you wanted to try to understand how does it work in the US, like I would work with individuals. I would try to do art classes at Iris for years, run their World Refugee Day stuff, because I felt like there was so much to learn from people who've experienced such truly mind-blowing circumstances to get here, that like they felt like almost like prophets, like please tell me in my little New Haven world, like you're my teacher. So there's been threads of that in both my Chicago community and certainly here. Yeah.
How has the act of sculpting ever helped your process, your own life experience with trauma?
Well, I think again, some of us are gifted with, like the both of you are articulate people who communicate well with others. Like you bring humor, you bring joy, you bring
Thank you.
serious subject matter. Yeah, you're welcome. To the lives of many all the time on your radio station. So that's a gift, right? That's a talent. And I recognize that then there are people that write music, and that's another way. But for me, not being, I don't consider myself articulate like that. But give me a clump of clay. Give me something broken so I can rearrange it, fix it, and present it in a new way that like might hit your gut a little bit. Maybe that concave space makes you think of like an internal negative feeling that you might experience, or maybe that wound up ball of thread that's all entangled up and whatever represents like, anxiety and just wound up feelings that like so many of us have. So materials themselves have helped me survive this world. When you're a sensitive human being, like I believe I am, it feels really, really heavy. And right now it feels really heavy. And I felt extremely kind of numbed by it all recently and not knowing what to do. And I'm getting out of that, and I'm making actually ironically very peaceful pieces right now. Because I think people need that for mental health. And anyway, and I need it. So that's one example.
That was a great answer. But let's talk about people real quick. Your work has been exhibited worldwide. Do different audiences respond to your work differently based on cultural context, if I can speak?
I believe yes.
Okay.
Yes. One interesting thing that I really love is, for example, when people come and visit my studio, there's a matter, and this happened not that long ago. There was a gentleman from Lithuania walking in, and he said, "I feel like I'm home. I'm looking around, and he's like, I feel like I'm home." And then my good friend from the Democratic Republic of Congo comes in 2 days later. He's like, take a deep breath, and he's like, "Oh my God, this feels like home to me." And I was like, what? Like, so we're talking about two distinctly different cultures. And that was everything. And I love when people have come in that might, like service, like coming to fix the heat or whatever. And they walk in and they see all these faces and all this art, and they're like, whoa. and then there's this pause, like, look, I don't know what I'm talking about, but this stuff is awesome. And I was like, but yes, you do know what you're talking about, because you don't have to go to art school to like feel something from art. Like,
there you go.
when you hear a song on the radio, you don't need a PhD in musicology. Like, you feel it or you don't. So, but I have to say, like, I had a show in France years ago, and sometimes artists will put like the little login book next to their show, and you can put comments. And man, it was awesome. Like the comments were like, "La humanité," like whole sonnets were written out, and
Oh, it's amazing.
yeah, like beautiful, like thoughtful. And sometimes, not all the times, because man, like I am definitely wholly American artist, because I will say that, even though my work can be seen like as a connection to all of us, but sometimes when I look at the books here in my shows in the US, they're like so cool, or which is great, you know what I'm saying? But it is a little bit funny. And I was like, anyway, yeah, there is, I have to say, there's a brand new museum in the Netherlands that just opened up, and
That's
it's called,
cool.
it's called the Phoenix, and it's only story. It's the museum's only about stories of human migration. So it's not just like art for art's sake. It's like,
And you work with
art.
them, right?
They have a huge piece of mine, man. It is ridiculous honor. And I just went to the opening of the museum, and here I am, nervous as all can be, because like I'm only one of two other American artists, and everyone else is from all over the world. And the language, there were so many languages, but there was a sisterhood, a brotherhood of creative makers who are making work in general that has a similar thread of, talking about our shared humanity, that felt like it was, again, one of those moments of like, okay, all right, keep going, Susan. Like there are many things, there are many times that you're like, oh gosh, like really? Can I do this another year? Like what? But then you're like, there's a universal thing that is too powerful. You just got to keep going. So yeah.
Was there a sculpture you made that surprised even you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. And it's actually ever present in what I'm doing now. And it's a series I started maybe 10 years ago. And it happened like totally organic, totally kind of like, oh, I'm going to try something new. I don't know where it's going to go. And when I start creating in this kind of like opaque, hazy way, it can either be a total failure or something truly cool can come out. And I've had both experiences. And there's a sculpture series I started called the Weight We Carry, where there are these kind of, these figures that their arms end up being really elongating and have these very bulbous, heavy weights to them, or their legs. And I think about the theory of like epigenetics, which is like how sometimes trauma and stories of past famine, slavery, you name it. We've got many stories to talk about: genocides, alcoholism,
Of course.
domestic abuse, you name it. But like there is a thing in science with epigenetics is that we do carry some of the genes of our ancestors who have both the powerful, resilient part, but also the trauma part and how we react to stresses. And I thought, man, what would it look like if you could see the weight that we carry, even if we're not totally aware of it? And that's where these kind of bulbous forms, they almost look like, water balloons that we're dragging. And it's not meant to bring sentimentality or like, I'm not sure it's not meant to do that. It's meant to make the inside more visible, maybe, and start discussions what looks like healing or awareness around. Uh, so maybe there's a chance we don't pass those weights on to our own children. I mean, that's kind of how it works. And that was a kind of a chance thing that started, and I am now enlarging one of them to 7 feet tall, and it's crazy powerful to see. The scale of work can feel so different when you get up close to something that is almost eye to eye versus this little thing on a pedestal,
Right.
I'm going to butcher this name, but it sounds like a liquor, so I may pronounce it right. You receive awards like the MH Hammer Slag. I know I butchered that name. Carving Award. What do those recognitions mean to you personally?
That's something I struggle with a lot. Like, so I'm almost 53. And I know that's how the world works, right? You get these awards, you get some accolades, you might have more chance for eligibility for grants or whatever. And I understand it. I get it. And I'm deeply grateful. I think that it has different feelings to me. Like, one, again, I'm totally grateful. But then the other part of me is questions like, do you really need that to know that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing? Or are you going to look for the next one to somehow maybe validate yourself? So I get into that wicked circular headspace thing, which I don't really like. So on the one hand, I'm really grateful, but then the other hand, like, here's an example. I have to say this. Sometimes people come into my studio and they'll come from, maybe academic backgrounds where their academic, maybe they came from Yale and one of the first questions they say is, where did you go to school? Instead of, this work is really powerful. How long, maybe how long have you been doing this or whatever, but no, like, where did you go to school? And that kind of feels very not okay to me.
Right. It's kind of like that backhanded compliment.
Yes.
They come with all the study and stuff like that, and they do it. They just so you know, they do it in every medium. Every single medium they do that in music and radio. I'm sure there's someone with a massive, incredible degree in radio that will pick us apart and ask P and I, where we went to school and what we did, and I'll look at them and I say, I was born this way.
School hard knocks, baby.
There you go.
Go.
But see, one of the key points that is so super important is that you have stayed true to yourself the entire way through.
Yes.
You haven't had to worry about playing to this norm or that norm because of, yes, are there rules in art? Yes, there are rules in art. You stick to them loosely because it's about breaking the rules the way you find that true art in there. And I'm talking about whether that be music or sculpture or painting or, it's not till the blade gets run through that is the art ever finished.
Right.
So I definitely understand and applaud, and I can understand how that could feel, because I've been in those situations where people, I've been talking about something that I'm kind of well versed in.
Right.
And they're like, oh, so when did you study? I was like, I didn't. I got a late fee from the library. Thank you very much.
Right. And I think that I really appreciate you sharing that with me, because sometimes I'm like, I'm left with my mouth just open. Like, are you kidding me? Like, it just feels like a punch in the gut. And I'm like, is it coming from an insecurity spot because I didn't get my degree in art?
Mm-hmm.
Like, as if somehow without that label, you can't be that thing. And I talk to young people quite a bit, including I have a 21-year-old son who's pretty beautiful jazz guitarist. And he's like, Ma, he's like, if of course there's a concern, like, can I make a living doing this? And
Right.
he watches the struggle I've had, and my sister's a professional flamenco dancer in Chicago for the last 35 years. So he's got his auntie who's like
wow.
doing the weird dance thing. He's got his mom who's doing the weird sculpture thing. But basically it was beautiful. He came to the realization, and he's studying in a conservatory at Oberlin, and then he's like, wait a minute, I'm starting to lose that thing of that spirit of why I love music, because it's kind of getting beaten out of me, or like you're being trained in such a way
to think
where,
Mm-hmm.
and he, he's deciding, like, you know what, I think I'm going to pull away and do something else. So I'll always have music be that thing for me that'll always, and that takes courage. Because again, can you go get those gigs and playing jazz somewhere if you didn't go to XYZ? And I recently did a wonderful project about a year ago honoring New Haven legendary living jazz heroes here in New Haven.
Oh, that's cool.
And it was one of the best projects I ever worked on in my life. And the reason I started it is because, rest in peace, James Dinky Johnson just passed away a couple days ago. He was a Hill House teacher, and he ran Dinky's Jazz Club.
I just read about that.
Yeah. Bless it. So you know what? We would see him. We'd see Dinky and a bunch of these jazz elders at Cafe 9 every Saturday. Every Saturday, right up there at the bar. And he watched my son get up on stage and, do his thing. They do the open jams. And then he beckoned him over and took the time. This 91-year-old man took the time to say, listen, young man, I heard this without, like, basically, this is beautiful what you're doing. But also, next week, I'm going to bring you in like some charts of this and that. Like,
that's cool.
Sure enough, next week, he had his folded paper. And I was like, dang, what? He's still educating and he's still lifting up young people. That's just too beautiful.
That's the most beautiful thing, and you see it the most in music, because I do feel that it is secular,
Yeah.
where there is so much more of that putting the hand back to bring up. You have those incredible moments, like when love or hate, however the artist is, but when Elton John and Eminem were on stage together in the Grammys, that was amazing.
Yeah.
They're just these moments that are just so, when one generation reaches out to the other
Yes.
and pulls them through. I mean, Neil Young working with Pearl Jam on the Mirrorball record.
Yep.
Phenomenal. I'm no, sorry, Merkin-Ball record.
Yes.
If I'm saying it correctly.
Yeah, no, 100%. And this paying it forward thing
Mm-hmm.
is
Mhm.
about the most precious thing any creative person can do. Well, shoot, I think any of us can do.
Yeah.
And I think of young people thinking of going into broadcasting and listening to you guys and
On
like
WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Go ahead, Susan.
That was so
yeah,
smooth.
like listening to you guys and be like, you know what, this feels good. These guys are honest, they're knowledgeable, they're sincere. You're a teacher. You're teachers as well, to the next generation. But it's a good thing. So I'll always keep teaching forever will keep teaching in my, whether I volunteer, which I do a lot of that,
Right.
or because otherwise you kind of feel like, you're in this little bubble. You're in the studio, you're in there 8 hours and you're creating this thing, right? And yeah, it might go out in the world
Mm-hmm.
in an exhibition kind of way, or maybe it'll go out in the world because someone might buy it for their home or whatever. But how does your work on this earth really live on? And it lives
Right.
on through others, which
Mm-hmm.
is in my mind, the memories and the kind of way you live your life, how you live it, and people see you as an example, and then certainly as an educator to the next generation.
It's so super important. I mean, I live by that philosophy that a human can die two deaths: the physical death, and then the death of the last person who's ever known you or knows about you when that person passes away. That is the second death. And the more we can put out there and create more of a legacy and create more things that are out there for other people to grow on, and just so that you're somewhat mentioned in those aspects, can give you that more immortality.
Yeah.
It's just done it in a way that it's perspective more than anything else, and I think
Yes.
that is absolutely amazing. So I want to thank you for that.
Right back at you.
Found objects, machine parts, worn wood, rusted metal seem to carry their own silent stories. What's the strangest or most meaningful object you ever worked into a sculpture?
I'm not sure I can grab like the most at this moment, but I have one that
Okay.
came to mind like right
Mhm.
away,
That's
which
fine.
is there's a woodworking tool there. It's like an old wooden clamp. There's two sides with flat insides, and then you kind of crank a wooden, I don't even know, it's like a wooden clamp maybe, but
Okay.
they're
Mhm.
very, very old. I don't think they really make them the same way. I think they're metal now, but I was gifted many of these clamps, and of course, I like to go for the kind of spiritual, emotional side of like what our insides might look like and stuff we push through. So I use one of these clamps as the interior, the torso of the human being, and I added a head and hands. The hand is guiding the crank either in or out, so it's
Mhm.
either opening it up or closing. And the tool itself is quite beautiful just to look at, but the idea that we're doing this, like opening and retracting all the time with what we're allowing into our lives, what we're opening ourselves up to receive, both spiritually, emotionally, whatever, um, and how we close to protect ourselves, to uh stuff we don't want in, like I do, maybe it's a little touchy feely sometimes, but I do think that yeah, like the nice thing about using these old tools is that people will often look at it, and the title of the work isn't really obvious of what I think it should mean or represent. And people will be like, oh God, that makes me feel like blah, blah, blah. Or that's so cool. It's like this. And sometimes it's even way different than I had thought people would receive it as, which is cool. Really, really cool.
No, that is by far always one of the best things is when people get their own interpretation, and it could be 3 million years off of what the initial aspect of it, but the fact that it's theirs, it makes it so incredible. That's,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with art, yes, you hope that you put out there and you hope that your message resounds, but really if your message can go past just that one point and bring on a life of its own and mean something so much to someone else, that is the truest form of art. And I think that is absolutely fantastic.
Amen on that one. That's true. Yeah.
We got the Apollo curtain on us right now, but I just want to for a two-parter question for you. This is going to be a two-parter question for you. Then after that, please promote your studio. Please promote any events that you got coming up for the rest of 2025, and for people to contact and reach you and, network and talk creatively and all the great stuff. But this first part of the two-part question, what conversations do you hope your sculptures start? And for someone who has never seen your work, where should they start?
Ooh. Shoot, the first part of the question, I am addicted, if not obsessed, with trying to find common threads that link us together. And I know that sounds so naive and so simplistic, but we are so constantly being like pulled apart and in this country. And the second we take a deep breath and can see that this person's weeping in the same way we weep, or finds joy in this, and then it there's just so many divisions that I think that we oftentimes forget that we are actually way more connected than we are divided. And if my work can even just a hair just shift someone's compassion or empathy towards someone that doesn't look like them, or that perceived like they don't see their identity in that figure that I made, but they can sense the emotion or the thing that they're experiencing. That is everything, because it's through empathy that I think we have a great deal of space to create, um, you know, other ways to bond together. I mean, again, I'm not an articulate person, so these words I'm choosing seem so simple.
They're your words; they matter. So
Okay, thank you, Preston.
You are much more articulate than you give yourself credit for, first and foremost. So you've been killing it this entire interview. All right, you've been doing fantastic.
I mean, you all make it really easy to be comfortable and
no pun intended.
And you ask and you ask very thoughtful questions too. But I think the second part of that, I think sometimes the best way to answer it is if people come in, and I have a solo exhibition, for example, and they walk in, they're like, whoa, how many artists are here? And I was like, that's my work. And they're a little bit taken aback, because they're like, there's sculpture in here, there's this, and there's blah, and there's this. And I just try to tell them, walk through. And then they're like, oh, I can see the linking I can see you in them. All these very different materials, all these different ways that you're expressing yourself. So for example, if someone would want to first check out my website, I guess, although sculpture on a website is kind of not so fun, which is just Clinard, my last name, .org. Or if you ever would like to walk through the studio, schedule a studio visit with me. That's totally cool. I'm up for that. My studio now is in West Haven, so it's border New Haven, West Haven border. Not too far from University of New Haven. It's in an industrial building over there. So I'm cool with that. They can reach out on, Instagram, maybe DM me on like Clinard Sculpture Studio, I think is my Instagram thing. And then we could set up a walkthrough. But I can't really plug too many shows right now. I've got three in the mix about ready to happen, but I'm not quite sure the dates or anything right now. I'm not that organized. So yeah, like if you ever and then I do open studio events, probably later this summer, and I'll do an open studio event in October when the city does their citywide open studio event. So that's another way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, and you can go to this is what you can go. Stetson Library on Dixwell Avenue has two of the portraits I did of these legendary jazz living legends that I sculpted.
Right next to the Q House?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And it's like you walk right into the Stetson. It's on the library, and it's of Jesse Hameen. And the second portrait is of Hank Bolden. Incredible human beings. And so that, that's up there for very long, I think. Yeah. Oh, and you can go into the Winchester commissions, the one I first talked about, where I use the structural beams of the Winchester factory as the bodies of these figures that pay tribute and honor to those that worked at Winchester for so long. And that's, I believe, just in their front lobby. So you can pop if that's something someone would be interested in.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Susan, we thank you. We appreciate you. And thank you for reminding us that your art isn't just about what's seen, it's about what's felt. And we thank you for being part of this broadcast.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Myself, Preston, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City Made, Mr. E.Z. BlueZ, WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven. We thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just discount? I don't know.